In this video, we're going to take the pen tool and we're going to take some basic shape tools and we're going to use those along with the Pathfinder functions to create a little logo like this that has a symmetrical spaceship that's tilted at an angle and turned into an acceptable logo. Not great work, but fine for the purposes of tutorial. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with the building of the spaceship itself, and you can see that it is a symmetrical image that has been later tilted at a 45-degree angle. So we're going to build half of it, copy, paste, flip, merge, and then you've got a symmetrical icon on your hand. So this is going to start with one thing that hasn't been mentioned in any of the videos I've put up thus far, which is the rulers around the edge. So if I hit Command R, it will show or hide these rulers around the top and left of the screen. So when they're visible, what I'll do is I'll reach in to the left side here and I'll pull out, click and drag out a vertical line. Now all this is a guideline. It's not an actual functioning line within Illustrator. Instead, it's just a guide that helps me keep things vertically oriented. Now I'm going to go over and grab the pen tool, and we're going to start on the guideline, literally on the guideline itself. It's throwing up a pink guideline here to help me line it up with the ship that's over on the side. That makes no difference, but I'm going to drop an anchor point there. I'm going to hold Shift and drag out a little bit. Basically, all I'm creating here is the fuselage of the aircraft. So if I want a straight line, horizontal, or vertical, I hold Shift. If I want a diagonal line, I let go of Shift. So I'm going to hold Shift and create the longer part. I'm going to create a diagonal line here, and then I'm going to go back up to my original point and close out this shape. You'll see that little circle appear next to the cursor, and I'll close that off and I've got a solid shape. Now what I always do at this point is whenever I'm creating multiple shapes with the pen tool is I go back to the arrow and click off on the canvas. There's a shortcut for it which I think is like Command Shift A or something, but more often than not I just get in the habit of going back to the arrow, clicking off to ensure that I have nothing selected, because that can sometimes change the way that the pen tool behaves. And I'm wanting to say put a wing over the top here and still have those shapes be separate for the time being, so that I can resize them and such. So the next one I'm going to do is the wing, and I'm going to make sure it overlaps with the body of this plane. And I'll go out here, click and pull to create a curve. This wing is not large enough, but I'll fix that in a minute. And then it wants to continue the curve, but that's not what I actually need for the design. So I'm going to go back to this most recent point, hover over it. This gives me the Convert Anchor Point emblem. I click that, it allows me to go back to straight lines. So I'll create an edge for the wing here. Create the wing, go back, close it off into a single shape. Now I can go back to my arrow, hold Shift, and scale it up a little bit because I made it slightly too small. And then I'll move on to the next part. This next one is a little bit simpler. It's going to be the tail of the aircraft. I'll make it kind of large. And same thing, close it off. So basically what I have here is three different shapes. I still want that wing to be larger. I always find that I want it to be larger. There we go. I've got these three different shapes together that are all separate pieces, but they're overlapping with each other, so I can then use the Pathfinder, this very first function on the top row that says Shape Modes, which is Unite, which merges those together into a single shape. Now I'm going to get rid of this guideline as well, which you can do probably is the most easiest form by going up to the View menu at the top. There's a menu that says Guides, and I can literally just clear guides. That's particularly helpful if you have multiple ones. And then I'm going to take this side of the aircraft, the spaceship, and copy and paste. Just Command C, Command V. And then I'm going to want to flip it, Object, Transform, Reflect. Hit OK. And then I'll line these up. I usually have a little bit of overlap between the two, but it's important to make sure that they are perfectly lined up, because why not? And I'll take those two pieces and merge those. So now that I've got that done, I'm going to create the little cockpit window, which involves just taking an oval and cutting through I'll also change the color of it so I can see it a little better. And I'll just arrange an oval here. I'll zoom in some and make sure that it's lined up properly. These little smart guides will help me get it lined up dead center. I like it about right there, I think. And then I'll select them both and use the minus front option, which cuts directly through. Now to get the text in there before I go tilting it, I just went with a standby of BBoss because all the other cool designers are using it. It's actually a typeface that's probably going out of style, but we're going to get some use out of it while we can. I'm going to, after creating the type, after getting it to the size I want, making sure there's no typos, I'll go up to the type menu at the top, choose Create Outlines, and that converts it to a shape, which then allows me to select it and use the Pathfinder again to cut it directly through. I don't think I had that quite lined up properly, but who cares? Now I'm going to take this whole thing and scale it down a little bit because I was working a little large. I'm going to go to the rotate outside the angle again, still using the selection tool, and click and rotate. Now I can rotate at any angle, but I'll hold shift to make sure I get it at 45 degrees. Why? Just because I tend to work on basic increments unless I have a reason not to. I like to keep it fairly consistent in terms of geometry. Now I'm going to go to the ellipse tool here on the side. I'm going to change it to no fill, and I'm going to add a stroke color. I'm going to draw out that circle, and I'm going to change the weight of the stroke to about 18. Let's make it 20. Now, if I resize this circle, which I'm about to do, it does not alter the size of that, or it does not alter the weight of that line because it's determined based on the stroke. It has nothing to do with the size of the circle. So I'm going to take that and scale it down a little bit and arrange it so that the ship is a little asymmetrical in there. Now what I want to do is, like you can see in the sample over here, cut gaps around the edge of the plane so that it doesn't overlap directly with this ring. But you can't actually do that with a stroke, because if I try to erase it, since the stroke goes around the outside edges of the shape, all I'm doing by erasing it is changing the shape of the shape. I'm changing the outer contour. So if I want to cut through the line, I need to convert that stroke to make it itself a shape. And I can do that from the Object menu. Go up to Object, Path, and Outline Stroke. Then, as long as it's selected, the eraser will only affect what is selected. I'll go in here and just erase some of these gaps. I'm not going to do a great job with this because there's no reason in worrying about it too much, just for tutorial's sake. I just want to make sure I get it basically cleaned up. There we go. Now I take all these elements, merge them together, and I've got a single floating emblem, with the exception of that one piece that I apparently missed when I was grabbing them. There we go. Now they're all together, and I have duplicated my logo.